Hey YouTube, this is the Death Scouter making another video, and today we're going to be changing out a starter on a 2013 Jeep Wrangler JK, and I'm sure this is going to be true for the entire JK line, but definitely for the 2012s and up with the 3.6 liter Pentastar engine. Alright, so not a whole lot. First thing I did here, after diagnosing that my starter was bad, went out and bought a new starter. And always take a look at what you got, and you'll see that there's two mounting screws that hold this in, plus a 12 millimeter nut here that holds the hot lead from the battery, and then there is a let me get that off, and then there is a wiring connection here with a clip lead clip plug on it that will be plugging in. Alright, so we're really talking about 1, 2, 3 bolts, a very simple installation. One thing you do have to remember is that the starter has a direct feed back to the battery right here, so it is always hot. So you must disconnect the battery positive terminal from the battery before we're trying to replace a starter. Otherwise, when you get the wrench up in there and you're trying to get this off, you're going to contact the frame, directly shorting the frame to ground and or to hot, and with the amperage of a car battery, that means that you've just welded your wrench to the frame of the car, and now your battery is going to go into meltdown. So always start with disconnecting the battery. So for that, I've got a nice little, what do I have here? A 10 millimeter. I'll go ahead and disconnect my battery. Okay, so I undid this nut, and I just wanted you to show that a couple of things. First of all, anytime you work on your battery, it's a great time to inspect your battery lugs, your battery terminals, and make sure that they're not corroded. If they are, go ahead and get a battery brush and clean those contacts up. And then the other thing I'm going to do is, I don't have a lot of wiggle room on these wires because I got so many accessories hooked up to my rig. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking that styrofoam piece that came off of the starter here, and I'm insulating so that these wires don't just so happen to lay back down and make contact with the positive lug. Alright, we're down underneath the Jeep and show you where I'm at. Here's the oil drain plug, and if we just travel up this way along where the housing of the transmission meets the back of the engine, you see, ta-da, Mr. Starter sitting right here. Now I've already gone ahead and disconnected this wiring connector. It's just a push in the tab and shimmy it off to release it. The hot lead, let me see if I can get up in there. The hot lead right there, that's the direct lead back to the battery. And that's kind of a confined space, so I'm actually going to try to disconnect that once I get the starter off the engine. And to get the starter off the engine, we're back here, and we'll get the two mounting bolts in the back. Now always, obviously if you have a bad starter, your vehicle's probably cold anyway, but I'm going to tell you that, you know, this is your exhaust pipe right here. The engine would be hot, there's lots of contact. It's really best to do this when your engine's cold, unless you can't help it, you know. But anyway, here's a 15 millimeter socket. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off this bolt and the one above, and I should be able to get this off the engine. And with a little bit of room now, with the starter hanging off the engine, I should be able to disconnect that hot lead. So let me work on that, and I'll start the video back up. Okay guys, I wanted to show you something. Trying to get my ratchet up into here to get these bolts off. I kept running into my drive shaft, and I just had no room to work. So what I did, I just went over here using the same 15 millimeter socket. I disconnected my drive shaft, dropped it out of the way far enough that I can get up here and actually work my ratchet and loosen these bolts. So I just wanted to show you that. To put the drive shaft back on, I believe it's recommended that you use Loctite on the threads. So before you start this, when you go out and buy your starter, also buy yourself a little tube of blue Loctite sealant for your threads, so you can make sure that your drive shaft stays on like it's supposed to. But just wanted to show that I had to do that. I'm going to go ahead and keep taking off these 2 bolts here, and then I'll get up to that direct line back to the battery, and hopefully get this thing swapped out. Okay, so I finally got this goddamn thing out, and as you can tell by my language, I'm a little frustrated. Here is the hot lead coming off the battery. I hope that's focused for you. There is so little play in this wire. You really have to work it and manipulate it to try to get this thing over the threads that it was on at the top of the starter. And without disconnecting that lead, you can't maneuver the damn starter in this tight spot to get the starter out, because it gets hung up. So everything has to get disconnected first, and then we can work on putting the new starter back up in place. Let me see if I can show you how I'm going to do it. It has to come. You really got to work it. You really got to be patient too, because it's not an easy fit. There you go. I just made myself a liar. I just got the new one right back up in place. All right. So first one pretty much just went right back in place. I got to get the wires reconnected, and I'll put my bolts back on. But I wanted you to see what I'm going through as I'm going through it, so you understand what you're getting into. Okay, well, everything's back installed. Both wires are connected. Both bolts are back on. Drive shaft is reconnected. I'm sorry if everything's up close. I only got like a couple inches to work with here. I'm laying underneath the Jeep. All right, let's go back up. We'll reconnect the battery, and then turn the key and see what happens. Okay, putting the final touches on the battery. Let's go ahead, work our way around, reach in and see what we got. Starts like a champ. Alright, YouTube, all said and done, I got this from Advanced Auto. Again, they're not sponsoring me, it just happened to be where I shop. Shop online using their website. I got an immediate 25% off. Because I shop there a lot, I get some kind of reward coupons. I got $20 off that, so all said and done, after my core charge, this will be about a $60 repair.